Okay, so next I'm going to take one scenario. So what I'm doing first, I want to know. Let's suppose if you want to comment in Visual Force page, how can you comment it? How can we comment in Visual Force page? So what we will use? We will use angular bracket. Okay, angular tag, then dash dash. After that, you have to close it. Dash dash. Okay.
So writing with the expression.
Exclamation mark ఉంది.
Yeah. So angular bracket expression dash dash. If you are writing two dash, you have to write two dash in close tag also. So it's a way to comment it in Visual Force page. So I'm going to comment the code, and what I'm doing, I'm going to create some input field. Okay. So let's suppose what we have to do, we have to enter the data, but it should be, it should not means that value which user is entering, it should not be displayed. It should be in you can say it should be in a symbol format, like I want to display the asterisk or any other symbol. So which, if you, let's suppose you want to create the field, and you don't want to display the number to the user, you want to display mask. So which you can say which data type you will use to create the field. You want to hide the data of the variable, you can say field. If you want to hide the data of any field, you don't want to display the correct data, you want to display symbol. Okay, like asterisk, cross symbol. So which data type you will
Text.
use to create the field?
Text encrypted.
Yeah, tax encrypted. Okay, so tax encrypted means if you want to store password type information, that time you can use tax encrypted. You can say data type. Okay, you can encrypt the data. So let's suppose in Visual Force page, if you want to encrypt the data, so how can you do it? Okay, so these things we will learn here. So first tag which I'm going to use, that is input text. You know very well how can we use it. We have already used it. Okay, so input text you can use. So I'm going to write input text here. Else you can write. You can also use output label to write it. Both are similar. Without output label, you can also write. So I'm going to save it, and before that I'm also going to create one block. Inside the block I'm going to write it. Okay, now I want to hide the data. So to hide the data, which tag we will use apex input secret. This tag we will use. Okay, so to encrypt the data, which tag we will use apex input secret. Okay, if you want to hide you can say, if you want to enter more information, so we have text area also. Apex input text area. Okay, if you want to display the checkbox, so we have checkbox tag which we can use apex input checkbox. Now I'm going to save it. click on preview. And if you want to hide the data that time, you can also use one tag, that is input hidden. You will not get any, you can say, box in input hidden tag. I'm going to save it, then I'm going to preview it. Refreshing the page. Okay, I'm not getting good UI. So what I'm doing, going back to the page. In page block, I'm going to create this section, and I'm going to write the column. Column should be fun. Now again, I'm going to refresh the page. So input text I'm getting here. Okay, and input secret I'm getting. Okay, if you want to write the data in separate line, you can use text area. If you want checkbox, you can use input checkbox. Okay, and if you want to hide the data, that time you can use input data. Okay, so these tag you can also use to encrypt the data. You can use apex input secret. Okay, किसी कोई डाउट इन टैग में? Do you have any doubt? No.
No, sir.
Good. Okay, so next tag which we can use, that is pick list. Okay, if you want to create any pick list field, so we have data type in database, we can easily create the pick list data type, but how we will create it with coding? Pick list field we will how we will create it with coding? So we have one tag, that is select list, apex select list. So it's the parent tag. If you want to create pick list or multi pick list, so you have to use select list tag. Okay, so it's the parent tag. So from here we will pass the value, okay, in which you will store the data, and you can also use other attribute also. So what I'm doing, I'm going to write the child tag, that is apex select option. Okay, child tag is apex select option. So which data you want to display in the list, you will write in select option tag. So whatever the data you want to display, write it in apex select option. Okay, so we have two attribute, that is item label and item value. Okay, so what label name you want to display, you can write it here. Okay, like Noida. So it's the label name which will display to the client, and in backend whatever the data you want to store, you can write it. Okay, so same value you can also write, else you can write different value. So it's the label name which will display to the UI, and when user will select, it's the backend value. Okay, so like that you can also write it. I'm going to create three option Noida. Okay, next is Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune. Okay, so to Hyderabad we have Telangana, then we have Karnataka, and we have Maharashtra. Now what I'm doing, I'm going to save it, and I'm clicking on preview button. Again, I'm clicking on save. Okay, I'm not getting any error. Click on save. So what I'm getting Noida, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune. Okay, so here how many values I'm getting? I'm getting four values. Okay, so I'm not getting good UI. what I want to display only one value. ठीक है, डेटा डिस्प्ले हो गया है ऐसे, but I'm not happy with this data. Okay, so now what I'm doing, I'm going back and here in select list in parent tag we have one option that is size. So one value I want to display only. Then when I will click on that time I want to open display all the values. Okay, so one value I'm getting drop down button. When I will click on the drop down button I'll get all the values. Okay, so when I will select any, you can say option, any value I will select, so where you will store it. So what you can do, you can pass one attribute in select list, that is value. Okay, in value you can write any variable name which you will define in class. So when you will select the Noida name will store in that variable. If you are selecting Hyderabad, so Hyderabad will go in variable. When you will select Bangalore, so Bangalore name will go in that variable. So it's a way. Okay, so I'm getting one error. There is no variable name, so we can remove it. When we will work on any assignment, that time we will write it. Okay, when we will store the data in Apex class. ठीक है, so it's a way to display the data in a picklist form. If you want to create picklist field in Visual Force page, so you can use select list and select option. Okay, okay, so okay, it's a good. Let's suppose if you want to create multi-pick list. Okay, you want to create multi-pick list, means we can select multiple value at a time. So how can we create multi-pick list type field in Visual Force page? Okay, so if you want to create multi-pick list, simple, you have to pass one attribute. I'm going to copy the code and what I'm doing, I'm writing please select multiple city, and in Apex select what I'm doing, I'm going to write one attribute that is multi select. So when you will write multi select, you will get some information after attribute name boolean. So which type of information you will enter, you will enter boolean type of. Boolean means true or false. So if multi-select is true, means we can select multiple option. If it is false, we can select only one option. Okay. So I've written multi-select is equal to true. Now I'm going to save it. Now again, I'm going to preview the data. Okay. So here I'm getting city. Please select multiple city. Let me write the size. Okay. So I'm getting multiple values. I can select multiple values. Okay, but here I can't select multiple values. So if you want to select multiple values, use multi-select is equal to true, one attribute. So it's a way. ठीक है, ये सभी को समझ में आया कैसे हम पिक लिस्ट क्रिएट कर सकते हैं. हाउ कैन वी क्रिएट द पिक लिस्ट इन विजुअल फोर्स पेज, हाउ कैन वी क्रिएट मल्टी पिक लिस्ट इन विजुअल फोर्स पेज.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I have one question which I want to ask to you. Okay, so when I will select if I am creating pick list value, okay, and I'll select the value. So in which variable I'll store the data? Means in primitive type of variable or non-primitive type variable? Which type of data?
Non-primitive.
Non-primitive. Which type of data type I'll use here to store the picklist type information? List, string, which type of data? Which type of data type I'll use to store the data of city picklist field?
String.
According to ma'am, string.
No, sir, list.
According to Ms. Raji, list. We have to store the data of picklist field. So which type of data we will use to store it? We have two both. One is string, second is list of string. Which one is correct?
Both.
List or string?
So I think we have list of data. That's why we will select list.
Okay, again, Preeti ma'am is saying list. Okay, any other participants would like to say anything here? कुछ आइडिया नहीं. ठीक है. Now tell me which data type we will use to store the data of multi-pick list value.
Non-primitive type.
Non-primitive data type according to Ms. Raji. Okay. Any other participants?
Non-primitive.
Non-primitive. ठीक है. ठीक है. तो देखो पिक लिस्ट टाइप का अगर डेटा स्टोर करना है वैल्यू कितनी सेलेक्ट करोगे, एक करोगे, एक से ज्यादा?
सब मल्टी के लिए तो लिस्ट करेंगे ना, और उसके लिए तो एक एक
एक।
करेंगे, तो स्ट्रिंग होगा एक के लिए तो।
हाँ तो ये तो पूछ रहा हूँ पिक लिस्ट फील्ड के लिए कौन सा डेटा टाइप यूज करोगे
अच्छा
स्टोर
सर, मैंने
करने के लिए?
नीचे वाले जो वैल्यूज है मल्टी के लिए बोला सर। एक के लिए तो
ठीक है.
सर स्ट्रिंग ही करेंगे, मल्टीपल के लिए लिस्ट।
ठीक है, तो अगर आपको एक डेटा मीन्स इफ क्लाइंट विल सेलेक्ट वन वैल्यू, so that information we can store in string type of variable. If user is selecting, client is selecting multiple value, so which data type we will use? We will use list type of data type. ठीक है. तो मल्टी पिक लिस्ट में हम लिस्ट क्रिएट करते हैं हमेशा, लिस्ट ऑफ स्ट्रिंग. ठीक है, कहाँ यूज करेंगे हम लिस्ट का? जब हम मल्टी पिक लिस्ट टाइप की फील्ड क्रिएट करेंगे. ठीक है, देयर वी विल यूज लिस्ट ऑफ स्ट्रिंग. ठीक है, इस पे एक असाइनमेंट करें. ठीक है.
Sure,
सो
sir.
what I want display pick list field with apex class. Okay. So which value I'll select, I'll send the data in Apex class also. Okay. Also want to display, you can say some checkbox, some radio button. These thing I also want to display. Okay. So first what I'm doing, I'm going to create one class. You can say list example or pick list example controller. Then I'm going to create one page. Okay. I'll use the class in Visual Force page. So I'm writing controller is equal to class name. Okay. Now what I'm doing, I'll create the list. Okay. And that data. Okay. So what I'm doing, I'm going to create one constructor also. Okay. So if you have to initialize something, you can use constructor. Otherwise, there is no need. So what I want to display pick list field. So user will select one value where I'll store that data. I'll store in one value in one variable. So I'm going to create one string type of variable. So I'm writing pick selected cat set method. Okay, now I'm going to create. Now, second, I have created multiple list field. Okay, so I can select multiple data. So what I'm doing, I'm going to create one list of string multi pick then cat set. Okay, now let's suppose if you have to display course. Okay, in a pick list form. So user will select one course. So you can use another variable that is course and get set method. Let's suppose you have to display the gender also in radio button. Okay, so you will select there are two option. Okay, two and three option. So you will select one value. Okay, so that data where you will store. I'm going to create another variable that is gender and it's the string type of variable. We will store only one value. Okay, so for you can say primitive type of variable, we don't need to initialize it, but which one is non-primitive, we need to initialize it. We have to initialize it. Okay. So if you want to initialize it on click of button, you can click initialize it on click of button also. Else it's a good way to initialize it when in constructor. Okay. So it's a good way to initialize the list type of data in a constructor. So I'm going to initialize it. So when Visual Force page will reload, so list will initialize and we can store the multiple data. Okay. Now what I'm doing, I'm also going to create one button. So public void first button and I'll create the one button and I'll call first button method on click of button. Okay. Now go to the Visual Force page and create the picklist field, this thing. So first I'm going to use apex form because it's the parent tag of apex import field and command button also. Okay, after that I'm going to create one block. So in block I'll get the heading as well as footer. I'm going to create one block. Okay, inside the block you can write title, whatever the title you want to write. Pick list and multi pick list example. So if you want to write the title, you can write, else you can skip it. Okay, so I want to create the button also. So to create the button as a header and footer, you can use page block button. Okay, so inside the page block button, what you have to do, you have to create the command button. Okay, by place button, we are specifying the location. So I'm going to create the command button and what will be the button name you can write. So for that, you can use value attribute to write the button name. So value is any name you can write. Button first. Okay, now what I want to give the style to the button. So which tag I'll use to give the style? I'm asking to you which tag I'll use to give the style.
Tab style.
Tab style according to Miss Raji. So two button I want to give the style. I want to apply CSS.
Style.
Okay, so we will use style tab.
Background color. Color.
Yeah.
विजिबल नहीं होगा सर येलो।
येलो विजिबल नहीं होएगा।
हो जाएगा।
कॉम्बिनेशन से ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट।
तो मैंने अप्लाई किया था ना।
आई सी इन कैलकुलेटर।
Yeah. So I have added one button, command button. Now what I'm doing, if you want to give the location, you can give the location. So I want to display it on top, and it should be on you can say right hand side. So location top and direction I am also giving. So right to left. Now I'm going to save it. Okay. So button I have created. Now what I want to create a pick list field. So to create the pick list field, what I'm doing, I'm going to create one section inside the page block. Okay. So if you want to write the section name, you can write any section name. Write is equal to pick list section. Okay. So I'm going to create city, and same tag I'm going to use it. Apex select list. So first we will use select list. Okay. Inside the select list, we will use select option. So we will write size. So at a time, I want display only one value. Size is one. Okay. Where you will store the data. So you have to write the value. And here you have to write the variable name in which you will store the data. So I'm storing it in pick selected variable. Okay. Now what I'm doing, I'm going to display the information of the pick list field. Okay. So I'm going to display the value. So we have select option. Okay. So in select option, you can write item value and item label. So I'm going to use item label and value attribute. Okay. So item label, you can write pick list field value here. So first I'm going to starting with none. Okay. And I'm going to add 3, 4 value. Okay. So same data I'm going to add here like city, Bangalore, Noida and Hyderabad. Okay. So you can write item value, same name you can also write. Now I'm going to save it. So it's the label name which will display to the client and it's the backend part. Okay. Now what I want to create multiple list. I want to create multiple list. So I'm going to create multiple list field. So again, I'm going to create one section. If you want to create section, it's okay. Else you can write inside the in the same section also. Okay. So I'm writing title name. So it's the multi-select multiple list example. And same code you can copy and paste it. Okay. So now time, what we have to do, we have to change the attribute. Here we have to pass one attribute that is multi-select. It should be true. If it is true, we can store multiple data. Okay, so multiple data where we will store it in list type of variable. So I'm going to copy the code, paste it here also, and in go to the class which variable I'm using multiple list variable. Okay, then save it. Now what I'm doing, I'm clicking on preview button and I'm checking it which type of UI I'm getting. ठीक है, पिक लिस्ट मल्टीपल लिस्ट एग्जांपल, ये सेक्शन है, ठीक है, कोलैप्सेबल ट्रू है. So city I am getting here Noida, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune. Multiple list I am getting here. Okay. Button I am also getting here. ठीक है, जो यूआई बना रहा था वो यूआई बन चुकी है. ठीक है, कोई डाउट यहाँ तक? Good. So what I'm doing, I'm going to cut it, and before that I'm going to save. So now I'll get section in order. So here I'm getting drop down means it's the collapsible. So if you want to display the data of the section, you can use this button. If you want to remove this button, what you can do, you go to the page block section tag, and here you can write collapsible is equal to false. If collapsible is equal to false means that drop down button will not display. Okay. So this type of you can say UI you have created with the help of page layout. पेज लेआउट की हेल्प से आपने सेक्शन क्रिएट किए होंगे. ठीक है, तो उस टाइम ऐसी यूआई आती थी. These are the page block section. Okay, so now what I'm doing, I'm going to display the gender information. So again I'm going to create one section. So open the page block section, then close it. Okay, so I have created one section. Now I'm writing title name. So title is radio example. So we have one information that is sender. I want to display the radio button. So to display the radio button, we can use apex select radio. Apex select radio. Okay. So inside the radio, which tag you can use? You can use same tag, that is select option. Okay. Inside select radio, you can use select option. So label name, you can write any label name which you want to display. Okay. So I want to display male and female. So I'm going to write it, and value same name you can also write. Okay, so we will select one value. Where we will store that value, we have one attribute that is value, and in class we have also created the variable that is gender, so in which we will store the information. Okay, so if you want to display the checkbox, you can also display the checkbox. I'm going to create one checkbox. So inside the section, so what I want to display the checkbox as well as data. Okay, so I'll display the multiple checkbox. Okay, so user can select any value. Means I have Java skill, so you can click on the Java checkbox, .NET checkbox, Okay, you can click on the Salesforce admin developer like that. So I'm going to use Apex. First, let me create this section. So I'm going to create one page block section.